Tell me when we're ready to
So
go.
we're live.
Okay, awesome. So we're live on Twitch, and today we're going to be talking about mental health in esports. So I've got with me Molly Drew, who is one of our trainee psychologists at GScience. Molly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. A bit of background about me. I did an English and Sports Science degree initially at Loughborough University. Realised on my placement year within the British Army's sort of health and wellbeing department that psychology was what I really wanted to do. So once I graduated, I moved over here to Belfast, and I'm currently studying a master's in psychological science at Queen's. And my long-term goal is to go clinical. So I'll be doing a doctorate at some point in the near future. But at the moment, I'm just sort of training, and I work with GScience and different players and support in a variety of ways.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Molly. It's great to
No
have you.
worries.
And Stuart, we've got Stuart, who's the founder and owner of NSG. Stuart, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Stuart McAllister. I'm the owner of Nuclear Storm Gaming. I've owned NST for I think around five, coming up to 6 years now. Been involved mainly with started from Call of Duty as a player, and then moved into management, and then decided to start my own idea. So, say I've been doing this for sort of close to 6 years now. So yeah.
Awesome. Right, got the intros done. So now let's kind of get into it. So as I said, it's Mental Health Awareness Week, and I think it's super important to talk about some of the issues and problems across the industry, especially focusing on mental health. Molly, do you want to start off and introduce the first topic that we're going to be chatting about today?
Yes, of course. So obviously, you guys have two different perspectives there. One very much from sort of the CEO's point of view, and then Stuart yourself as an owner of a team. So we're just going to talk about the pros and cons of being in those positions within esports and your sort of experiences, positive and negatives, this far, really. If you want to go ahead first, Ryan.
Yeah, so I think, starting up a company in itself brings so many different challenges as well as so many opportunities. And I think I've been doing this now for about 18 months, and I think it's been one of the toughest, but also one of the most rewarding experiences that I've ever had. I'm sure you can probably relate to that as well, Stuart.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in terms of my mental health and how that's been impacted, I think it's definitely been a challenge. And what I would say is that over the last 18 months, there have been times where I've had really bad bouts of anxiety, even moderate depression at times, and I've definitely been burnt out as well. And I think these are really common things that esports athletes are actually experiencing right now as you're pursuing something that you love. And if you have that ambition, that drive to succeed, there's going to be times where you maybe don't find the healthiest balance between, the pushing and the hard work and maybe that recovery time. And I can definitely tell, there's been times in the past that my body's been doing one thing, but my mind's been elsewhere, thinking about GScience and strategizing about all these other things. So what I would say is like there are cons to it, and I think it's always being switched on and always thinking about what you're going to do and what the next thing is that you have to do. And I think it's about really trying to find a balance between the work and the kind of play aspect and the recovery aspect. And it's something that I definitely am trying to work on and I have been working on over the past couple of months. And obviously I'm very lucky that my partner is Molly, who is a psychologist, who's a psychologist, and I think that's something that I found's really worked for me is having that support network there, and a problem shared is a problem halved, and I think that's great advice. And I think what I would say is as a company owner now is if you're in that position where you are struggling, I think it's really important to talk about them problems and to create a really supportive network around you with people you trust and can provide that kind of help and advice when you need it. So that's kind of just some of the insights that I've experienced so far from being a company owner. Although I would say is I think everyone should give it a go at some stage. It's one of the most exhilarating kind of experiences that you will have. I kind of love to know, Stuart, what you think about that and your current experiences as well.
Just on that, actually, before you jump in there, Stuart, Ryan, you talk about support obviously being a massive thing and how lucky you are to be living with someone that's sort of aware of these things. Didn't pay him to say that or anything. But, just just for those people that maybe don't have like a partner right there or family that aren't really very interested in their esports life or that side of things, what are some of your like very practical tips you would implement? I'm just thinking people that don't really feel like they could talk very openly with their support network, or some practical things you can do for yourself. As much as support is fantastic, but when people don't have that support ready at hand, and obviously we're in a lockdown at the moment, access to people and your sort of closest, nearest and dearest, quite difficult. What would you say are the things that you can do yourself to sort of
Yeah.
take ownership of how you're feeling and just, deal with those problems?
Yeah, well, just before you talk about the stuff you can do yourself, I think one thing we need to highlight as well is in gaming and in esports, it's a community-based activity. There are
Mm,
some amazing people that you'll meet out there in the community who probably are going through similar things, and I'm sure you'll probably touch upon this in a minute as well. And I think it's about finding other people that can support you there. If it's your friends that you play games with, it's someone in your clan, if whoever it may be, you can always find someone to chat to. And I'm sure if you really opened up and were honest about how you were feeling, I'm sure they would be there to support you when you actually need it. So I think the first thing is try to, you know, develop the kind of courage to understand that it is okay not to be okay. And I think if you try to verbalize that, what you'll actually find is most of the time that people are going to be really open-minded and be there to support and help you. And that's what I would say first is try to find a network, be open and honest, and have the courage to speak about your emotions, and then you'll be surprised about the effect that'll have. The second thing I would say about things you can do for yourself, I mean, there's a whole long list of things you can do, but I think for me, what really has helped me with, let's talk about the business side of things and having a company, is finding times to switch off. Like after 7:30 at night, putting down your phone, locking it away in a drawer, and by doing that, you're actually not constantly thinking about the business, replying to emails, being on your phone late at night. So I think actually putting in boundaries when you actually switch off. And then I
yeah.
think another thing that's really worked for me is developing routines, in the morning, getting up, doing your stretching, having a cold shower, doing a bit of mindfulness meditation, and then before bed, doing some reading just to help you kind of switch off and like kind of wind down before you go to bed. And then, yeah, I think there's a whole host of things you can do, and a lot of the time it's really small things, such as just
Hmm.
getting out, getting a bit of fresh air, getting some movement in, if it's yoga or if it is going for a walk or just doing some daily exercise. All of these small things, when you put them together, can have a massive effect on your overall physical and mental health. So they're just some of the kind of the practical tips that I'd give.
Okay, great. And Stuart, do you want to get into a bit of your experience and how you found things as an owner?
Um, pros and cons, really, or what do you think?
Yeah,
Pros and cons.
pros and cons, and just your sort of positive or
So I
negative
think,
experiences so far.
suppose I'll go. Well, I go negative because you want to finish with a positive. Yeah,
Yeah,
shall I?
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose negatives is just the amount of time you put in for very little reward is certainly at maybe my level, and
Hmm.
maybe as well that people don't often understand the task of being like a small esports owner. Like I see so many companies start and and fade away because it is almost like too hot to handle for people. Like they do not understand what it takes, and many of the discussions that I've had where obviously the players get so much, and me as an owner almost get nothing. Like I sacrifice time with family, money, whatever it is, to make sure that the organization gets what it needs. Um,
Hmm.
so I think as a con, I mean that's a big one in terms
Of
of
course, yeah.
that it's and I very much look at it the short term. I very much look at it that I just need to focus on that as a short term and realize that in the long term I will seek the sort of the benefit, and what, I suppose it'll be more of a reward for me probably in the end, because I see myself as I really came from nothing. I wasn't really a traditional gamer when I was younger. I played video games, but I wouldn't have been really obsessed with them. I did get really into them when I was about 17, 18, but you look at big organizations that are successful now have come from someone who was a player, and a quite a
Hmm.
successful player. Whereas I've really come from nothing. I've come from not really a gaming background, and we were talking about the likes of family. My family have no idea about it, and but it's my family are actually, in terms of like the likes of my mum and dad, although they don't know much about it, but they are quite supportive in terms of my mum will always say, I have no idea about it, but it seems good, and I want you to keep going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, there's times where I'm like, is this worth it? Like, is this really worth what I do? And she will always say to me, like, you can't give up on this now, and that's really that is the sort of the driving factor for me.
Hmm.
In terms of pros, I mean, is I suppose the social aspect to it. If you're in a position where certainly if you can do it right, like you could be going to LAN events a couple of times a year, meeting new people, you're meeting new
Yeah.
players, and finding the right people as well. I think that's the one thing, is finding the right people in your circle who want to have the same success as what what I want. That it's getting those people is what makes a big benefit. And the pros, I say, like it's just I'm very much I would sort of consider myself as an extrovert, and I enjoy getting. That's just the way I am. I'm very social, and I enjoy that. Like, I love meeting my players, going over and seeing them at an event, and whether I bring them here, whatever it is. Like, I enjoy that aspect of it. So, say probably in pros, I suppose seeing people win. Like, I'll admit,
Yeah, of
I
course.
I'm a terrible loser. Like, I never have been good at like I hate it. We've had this discussion lately in our group chat with our friends about when we play a bit of Warzone. They're like, "Oh, oh, I'm happy with the top 10." And I'm like, "No, if I don't win, I am not happy. That is not how it works for me. Like, I have to win." So
I'm
yeah.
sure, Molly, you could comment on that. You've seen me coming out
Yeah.
after a few times.
I think what for both of you, what strikes me is that, as much as it's difficult, you try and the end goal is the success and the reward. We're human beings. We all need feedback on what we're doing and reward as part of the process. But I think the big thing that's standing out is you're both embracing the journey
Yeah.
and embracing what's happening. And it, as much as yes, there is an end goal, you're enjoying the journey and the ups and downs and trying to roll with the punches.
I very much see it as, and I've had this discussion with friends before, that I can look back and be like, wow, like I really was in it, like, if you want to call it, like, your feet were stuck in the mud and you literally had to be pulled out of it to get to where you are. That's, and I think all of us are in that same boat where you can look back and be like we really started from the bottom, the bottom
Yeah.
to, and that's very much why I'm driven, and I'm sure you're the same as to what drives you to be like, you made a success story out of nothing, and that's sort of where I stand, and that's firmly what I believe, that why I do it.
Hmm.
Yeah, of course. And so moving on a bit, then we've sort of briefly touched on it there, but the mental health scene within esports is just sort of you see the tip of the iceberg, really, don't you, in the news and stuff, and players talking about their mental health. What's your experience been? Don't know if you want to kick this one off, Stuart, considering you've got players that you sort of are in touch with regularly. What's your experience been on the whole mental health front within esports?
Um, I mean, I suppose when we talk about it being demanding for the likes of us, it obviously is demanding for players as well. Um,
Hmm.
and I think certainly at the level that we're at, you know, trying to, and I was actually speaking to my designer the other day, and he was like, if his passion for this is unbelievable, but it's hard when you work a full time job and then try and come home and do something for almost like very little money or volunteering. It's hard to get that
Yeah.
motivation. He's like, if I could do this all day every day and knowing that's my job, I would be so good at it. Um, so for years, I think the biggest struggle I've had is that luckily, I would consider myself probably. Don't get me wrong. I've same as Ryan said, I suffer. I've suffered from the likes of anxiety, depression, whatever it has to be. But I still consider myself quite a strong-minded person that I can overcome things. Unfortunately, some
Hmm.
people can't. And over the years, I've had people come to me and be like, "Look, I'm having personal problems at home and stuff like that." And obviously, I always take that into consideration. I will never force someone into something, and I'm very much, look, don't worry about it. And I'll be honest, I think that's maybe what has stalled me a bit. Is just because people don't understand the task at hand. They don't understand how difficult this industry is. It's
Hmm.
it very much is. You've got to put the work in to start with to reap the rewards in the long term. And we've had so many great things going on, and then maybe gradually people have fell away with personal problems. And it's really how everyone deals with it differently. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I very much use that as motivation to try and do better. A lot of people consider me quite hard on myself, where if something isn't going right, I sort of would blame me, to be like, that's this is all me. Like, I need to get my myself in gear here, and
Hmm.
that's just the way I am. Some people are very much just step away from things and don't want to do it, whereas I see it as I need to make it right. If
Yeah.
it's been my business and it hasn't been successful, then it's on me, and that's very much, I'm very hard on myself, and I don't think I'll ever change that. That's just the way I want to be. I want to make sure that I'm continuing to do better. So, um, yeah, you get it with players, and it's difficult trying to keep teams together. We all know that.
Hmm.
And yeah, it is one of those things that people, if I think if people could do it as a job, it would be a different matter, and likes of
Of
having
course, yeah.
likes of having you guys there to help with that side of things is it would be fantastic. But I think at a amateur level, like there's always going to be that struggle. It's just it's such a young, what do you want to call it? It's such a young industry, still
Yeah.
learning, that people don't. People are still playing 14 hours a day or whatever it is. It's that's I couldn't do that now. Like I could have done it
Hmm.
years ago, but not now. There's no way I could do that. I have to take a break, or I have to just settle somewhere. Um, so yeah, but yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it's just we just got to try and tackle it, and that's obviously what we're trying to do as a team.
So your players, do you come into contact with a lot of people that are struggling mentally, that have difficulty sleeping, switching off, feel anxious, can't focus, demotivated, all those sort of lingering signs of kind of burnout,
Yeah,
um,
I,
that side of things?
people don't really go into detail, and I mean, I
Yeah,
wouldn't I wouldn't ask. At the end of the
of
day,
course, yeah.
for confidentiality or whatever, I have a family member who owns a counselling centre here, and she will always
Hmm.
say to me about things. Even on a personal level, I get people approaching me through everything and like asking for help, and it's all confidential. So I
Of
very
course,
much,
yeah.
if someone comes to me, even someone I've known years ago, and they obviously know me through stuff, I send them to the counselling centre. I will never hear anything else about that. That's the way that is, and
Yeah,
that's fine. So unless someone comes to me and says this is the problem I have, like, people don't really delve into it.
okay.
I will try and help where I can. One thing I always try and do is try to get people to remember. I think the big thing about me is I try and remember what I was like when I was younger and what made me
Hmm.
happy. Like what were those things that when you're a teenager you had no real care, and what made you happy. And I try and say to people, like, why not get into things that made you happy?
Of
Like me,
course.
getting back into sport has been massive for me, huge for me. Like I was rugby mad for years, and then when you step away from that, everything does deteriorate. And I've now got back into
Hmm.
it, and I'm finding myself in far better form because it's something that I loved for so long. And that's the advice I just try and give to people. I try and find something that you've been happy with. Okay, if esports it does make you happy, but not fully, try and find the balance of something else. Maybe it's like the gym, or running, or
Yeah.
walking, or reading, or finding something that you can look back when you're younger days to be like, this is what used to be really make me happy when I was younger, and try and get involved in that again.
I think we'll talk a bit more about balance in the next sort of question we go on to. But just, I guess what I'm asking is, do you feel like it's prevalent in esports, negative or low mood and mental health, not issues, but the topic of mental health is quite topical. And would you agree with that and say it is prevalent from your experience?
Um, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about. I remember having a discussion one time about, even at a pro level, people think it's rainbows and butterflies. You know what I mean? They think
Hmm.
it's everything's great, and it's not. And I've had the discussion. Like at a top level, these guys are athletes. They are doing as much as anyone in the sports industry would. So
Yep.
you're going, like, these people are away from their families for 10 months of the year. They only get home in the off break for like a month or 3 weeks to a month, and then they're back, and then another off break. So it's like the thing about the industry talks about is the team houses. Team houses, everyone thought
Hmm.
great idea, but the problem is when you're with those same people, and you may not be getting on as a team, or whatever. It's very difficult. Whereas if you had like a facility or a common area that you actually went to, you
Hmm.
you're you're getting to go home and sort of focus on yourself, and not go into the kitchen with the guy that you've just had a full mouth of mass within the game. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's different when you're husband and wife and all. That's you've no choice. But I mean, when it's your team, you want to be
Well,
able, you want,
you choose to marry someone.
no, you gotta
I know what you're
well,
saying though,
you
like your
gotta
teammates.
compromise there. But
Yeah, yeah.
I know certainly from maybe from a guy's perspective, like it's very much, I think guys need to cool off. They very much need to get away from each
I
other.
think everybody needs headspace and
There's
time to
I
themselves.
know certainly from my point of view, like I would have to be able to look, like, you go away and I go away and then come back tomorrow. So I think it's hard when, if you're in a team house together and you're just there. I'm sure the person sneezes, they would probably irritate the other one. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
if very much there's so many aspects of it, and we talk about this all the time. Um, I think, as I say, the facility would be good where you can go home and you can switch
Hmm.
off. I think that is the big one, and Ryan touched on that. Switching off is massive. You've gotta find that balance of getting the phone off, getting your social media off, and it's something I'm not good at. I can openly admit that.
Yeah,
I very much want to get two phones at some stage. One is going to be for NSG stuff, and one is going to be for personal, and that's what I want to do. But
yeah.
I'm terrible at it, but
I
it is
think
a
the
good
thing
idea.
is, it's a habit, isn't it? And we
Yeah,
all form habits so quickly, but unforming those habits or changing them is difficult. And when things are difficult, we can sometimes be a bit lazy and not really make the
yeah.
effort. So I see where you're coming from completely. Ryan, did you want to talk a bit about your experience with players and teams and who you've been chatting to and your sort of perspective on mental health and esports?
Yeah, I think I totally am aligned with Stuart there, and I think obviously over the last 12 to 18 months we've been working with a number of teams and players from amateur to pro now, and I think we see some of the common trends from a mental health perspective reoccurring, which is this inability to switch off. I kind of call it
Hmm.
digital addiction because you go from playing video games, doesn't matter what esport it is or what game it is, for probably 8 to 12 hours if you're semi-competitive or pro, and then after that you've got the probably commitments to sponsors if you're at the top level, so you're probably on Twitch streaming or you're interacting with your fans, so that's probably another 2 to 3 hours, and then that doesn't really give you that much time for actual social aspects in terms of catch up with your family and friends. That's probably another hour, whatever it is. So if you actually think about it, you're probably hooked into the digital world for 16, 17, maybe 18 hours a day, and no wonder you're seeing all of these issues across the board when it comes to, you know, burnout, mental health issues, physical inactivity, injury in players. And I mean, I could honestly write a book on it to be honest about problems in esports. And I don't I think for us I don't always like talking about the problems because there are so many amazing benefits to playing video games and
Of
to playing
course.
competitive esports. But it is really important to highlight why these problems occur. And I think one of the biggest issues right now across the industry is that the health and wellness and performance sector is still very immature, and it's in its infancy in many ways. And one of the issues about that is that there's a lack of education about what healthy gaming actually is and about the benefits of healthy gaming, both for the long player longevity and their health and actual competitive in-game performance. And what I think is, well, what we do at GScience is we're kind of evangelists for the problem. So we speak a lot about the problems in esports to help players and coaches and team owners and anyone who's kind of a key stakeholder in the industry to better understand and realize the kind of importance of taking this healthy approach to gaming. And we're trying to create self-awareness in players to make them stop and really kind of critique why they do the things they do. And
Before it's too late, even.
before it's too late. And actually, funny enough, Jamie, my co-founder, and I were chatting earlier today, and we were talking about being proactive rather than reactive. And a lot
Yeah.
of the issues around health is people wait until they get sick or until they develop an issue rather than taking the preventative health behaviors first
Hmm.
before it actually becomes a problem. And the reason why people don't do the preventative stuff is because sometimes it's really hard to show that by doing all of these things, such as sleeping properly, eating properly, getting exercise, that you're not going to get burnt out because there's not the burnout at the end. Whereas when you don't do them, there's the end goal of burnout. So it's
Hmm.
hard to sometimes quantify that end goal of not doing the unhealthy stuff, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I mean, the problems that we do see a lot of the time is just this digital addiction, game addiction as well, because people are hooked into games. And if you look at the way in which games are designed, like Warzone, for example, it just taps into your dopamine cycle and your dopamine receptors, and you get into the hooked model of, the trigger, um, and the reward, and that keeps you in this model, and that's why so many young people are so addicted to these types of video games due to the gaming design. So a big part of what we do preach is about taking a step back, really asking yourself as a gamer why you do the things you do. Once you start with why, then you're in a good place to kind of figure out what you want to do next. If your why is I want to be a pro gamer, well then the next step is that set some goals. How are you actually going to make this dream a reality? Because a lot of time what I hear is a lot of talk and very little execution. And it's what I've realized now that I've been in business. Talk is cheap, execution is everything. So the second step is to set them goals. And I think the third thing I always say is you need to learn. So it's impossible to go on this journey if you don't have the right resources and tools to actually get there. So you need to find, people like ourselves who are giving away this kind of information for free because we want to make a difference in this industry. And I think it's really important just to upskill yourself, learn about health and wellness and performance and how to do it properly. And then if you're super serious, find a coach, find someone else to even hold you accountable to it as well. And if you do these things repeatedly and stay disciplined and stay consistent, you're going to be a healthier, happier, and ultimately more successful esports athlete. And that's what we really drive for and push for in our at GScience. And that is our goal, is to, tackle physical activity and mental health in the whole gaming industry.
And of course, a lot of that is sort of dealing with the setbacks and negativity and reframing them into something positive. And like you say, like whatever you described just then was a very linear sort of upward journey towards the goal. But obviously, we've all been through trying to achieve goals and stuff, and it's never straightforward. And the whole point is it's not supposed to be,
Yeah.
And I think this is the problem. We all have this sort of instant reward, gratification. Everyone's picture perfect, and everything you see is like a top line of real life. And that doesn't help, when you are experiencing negative emotions or things aren't going your way or you're not playing well. And you just have to, people just don't understand that you need to step back and reframe your perspective and sort of sit with it and know that it's not okay and it's
Yeah.
fine. And then move forward. It's this trying to be perfect and this not very real reality that we're all trying to conform to, I think is part of the problem.
And I think a big part of that is just the way in which society is designed now, and that's
Absolutely.
why,
Yeah.
like I don't use social media in terms of like Facebook, Instagram. I know Molly's the same, and the reason why we don't do it is because, in my opinion, it's bad in many ways for your mental health, because your sense of self is reliant upon someone's like or gratification or a comment.
Mm.
And I just think it's an unhealthy way to live. And I think, as you said there, Molly, like it is key for people to realize when these things are happening and they are bad, instead of pushing harder and harder and then making the problem even worse, it's about
Yeah.
taking a step back and actually thinking to yourself, okay, why am I getting the results I'm getting, and
Yeah, and
what
it's
can I do
okay to
differently?
work on things, just because it hasn't instantly been great or you haven't instantly achieved what you wanted or set out to achieve, it's absolutely fine to work on it and work with other people to get better. Nothing, I think that's the real crux of the problem, is nothing is instant and nothing
Yeah.
does happen overnight like we're all taught to believe, if you do this, it will lead to this. Well, actually, no, it's fine to work on things and you shouldn't just walk away and give up on things. Like you were saying, Stuart, you have to overcome adversity and build the resilience, and that helps you along the way. Um, so we spoke a bit about the pros and cons of being a CEO, being a team owner, organization owner. What about the pros and cons of esports? Obviously, we've spoken quite a lot, with it being Mental Health Awareness Week, about mental health in esports and how it can be quite negative. But what about the pros of mental health and the connectivity and the fact that there's a community and stuff? What have you both experienced in regards to that?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
go.
Go ahead.
So I think yeah. It's the relationships. Gaming's a real strange one because, like, there's some people you may have known through gaming for 4 or 5 years, and you may never see it. You know what I mean? And like you can see them one day, and they're like your best friend. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
real strange. You could meet an American, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and see them today, and it's like it's strange concept to it. So I definitely think I'd say that's a big one for me. I'm very much like I enjoy, I've enjoyed team sports. I remember playing golf when I was younger, and summer, mum and dad just threw me up to the golf course and I'd go and play. And I just had to try and find people. And if I didn't find anyone, if they had full team, you just had to practice by yourself. And I hated it. Hated it with a passion. So I went and played cricket and I went and played rugby, and two team sports where I thoroughly enjoyed. I know cricket isn't everyone's cup of tea, but in rugby, I went on rugby tours and we put skits together and some really, really good banter. And I would like to build the same culture within
Hmm.
esports. Have that like group of players, and a staff, and like I say, we used to create a skit, and there was team captains, and you had to go away and basically rip your teachers to shreds, and we dressed up in stupid uniforms and all, and came in and done
Sorry, Stuart. What's a skit?
so it's basically like um, it's basically like play, so to speak. So you've got to make up like pretend that you're in a classroom. So I would have pretended to be one of
Oh,
the
okay,
teachers,
right.
and I would have made like a funny voice, put like a
I've
stupid
got
tie
you.
on, like a
Yeah,
wig.
okay.
Like we were in Barcelona, and we had to go and try and find equipment in a hotel, and just find anything we could, and just create like a classroom session, and it was hilarious. And I want to bring that same atmosphere. I would, I when I had a team over for I can't remember what it was. It didn't quite line up, but I wanted to do activities like I mean, not as far as this, but because they're gamers. If you get hit by a paintball, they might get injured. But I mean, like I wanted to take them. I wanted to take them to certain places, and have a bit of fun. Whether it's go karting.
Yeah.
We actually went go karting. And do things that other sports clubs would do, and have
Yeah.
a bit of fun. So I think from that point of view, it's very much the team aspect for me. I work well in a team environment. I bounce off other people. I enjoy other people's company. And obviously, it is difficult because at the end of the day, right now, I'm in a bedroom on my own, and
Hmm.
I like to get in calls with people and talk to people on the phone. So I would love one day, as I say, my goal is to have a common area for everyone to be at. Like I know how more productive it would be and be able to bounce off each other and have fun, and I think that's the thing about esports is when you can get it to a level where you feel successful, it can be fun. And
Hmm.
I was actually talking to someone. I was talking to a designer about this last night. And Nate Shot's a big one for that. That guy knows his worth. Like he can stream Warzone all day if he wants because he knows he has put the effort in to make his company where it is and have the following, and he knows his worth, and that's very much I think with all our goals that we're putting the short term stuff in place to have those long term rewards. Do I
Hmm.
want to be 55 years of age and an esports owner? I'm not sure. Like I'd maybe hope to have my feet up somewhere in a warm country, like in Cape Town or something. I don't know. We'll see, but it's very much he knows his worth, and I think that's what we all want out of it. You know, if you try and go into esports thinking about the money, I never went into it for the money. It was always about
Hmm.
the enjoyment for games and the passion I have for playing and the competition, and it's never been about the money for me. Obviously, down your goal is to gradually build your business up so that you can provide for family and
Yeah.
friends and enjoy your life. I'm very much I don't live to work. That's I want to work to live, and if that has to
Hmm.
be, if I could retire when I'm 40, like I'd rather put in the work now and enjoy the rest of my
Yeah.
life. So that's really where I
It's
stand on it.
interesting. It's so interesting how that's the first thing that comes to mind for you, talking about esports as a team sport, because I do think, unfortunately, esports has a really bad rap for being like a really lonely, kind of weird
Yeah,
sport where you think about people just sat at home on their own with a headset on, and they're, just and gaming on their own basically. I think certainly like a lot of parents would have a negative perspective on it like that, and teachers in schools and stuff. And I think that education around the fact that it is such a team sport and
yeah,
actually you are so connected and you're online. And it's no different to saying like, oh, I'm going to go play five-a-side with my mates for the afternoon. I'm going to log on and play whatever you want to play,
yeah,
Warzone, with your mates for the afternoon. It's the same thing, isn't it? You're getting the same connection
yeah.
and you're talking to people.
Well, I would
What about you,
say
Ryan?
just
Oh,
just
sorry,
quickly,
your turn.
sorry, just quickly. I would say the whole, I very much thought during this lockdown, I personally was going to struggle. I thought I was
Yeah.
really, I thought, I'm very much, I work well with company and, not being with anyone. And I was like, I'm really going to struggle. But to be honest, the whole cross-platform Warzone thing has been phenomenal. Like, I'm playing with friends that I haven't got to play with because, one's had an Xbox, one's had a PlayStation,
Hmm.
I'm on PC, and it's just been, whereas having all us together it's felt no different to me now. It hasn't. It really hasn't, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a big boost for me in terms of my enjoyment for video games. Ryan and I
Hmm.
talked about this the other day. Like, sometimes you almost get away from being like, oh, I can't play video games, but that's the industry we're in. We gotta enjoy it ourselves as well. If you're not enjoying it, you're not going to have the passion and the drive to want to be involved in it, and I think that's a big thing for me. That has been massive for me in terms of back to playing and enjoying it with friends again. So
So
Yeah.
important, isn't it?
yeah.
Go ahead then, Ryan. Do you want to chat about some of your pros and cons of?
Yeah, I think just exactly what Stuart touched on there. I think the relationships that I've been able to build, and the good story here is one of my good friends, Andy Lawson, him and I played Call of Duty with each other for I think 3 or 4 years. And I challenged my Call of Duty clan to come do a Spartan race with me. Now, bear in mind, these lads, some of them aren't the fittest. And I have so much respect for Andy because he said yes. And over a couple of weeks, then, over a couple of months, like it was, he started training for the Spartan race. We did a 22K beast, right? And it was actually called a beast, not just said it was a beast. It's actually called a beast. And yeah, we all completed it. I think it took me 3 hours and 40 minutes, and Andy completed it as well. And it just showed you that, Andy
That
and
was the
I,
first time you've met, wasn't it?
yeah,
And you went to stay and
yeah, it was just it was literally just a crazy like couple of days. Like first time we'd ever met, he came pick me and my brother up from the airport, and then we went to see my other friends, who were living in Dundee at the time. We stayed with them, and yeah, it was just amazing to meet him like in person, and then do something so challenging together after like playing through so many things together and having that competition and that support before. But yeah, it's just amazing what you can do through esports, which is just connecting people globally and sharing different cultures and backgrounds, and like that's such an important thing, I think, at such a young age as well. Like if you can't physically be in different places, having the ability to interact with people around the world can really help kind of shape you as an individual as well. But I think that's one of the positives I would always say, is that team kind of building aspect and developing them skills like leadership and communication, and just basic like social skills, like knowing how to interact with each other, and ultimately having fun. That's what esports comes down to. Video games are meant to be fun, and that's the whole reason why I picked it up when I was 11 years old. And played Call of Duty 4. Like it was because it was fun. I enjoyed doing it, and I think the other things as well, just to kind of touch upon, esports now is a viable career. Like there's so many different things you can do. If it's
Yeah.
broadcasting, if it's being a player, if it's being a team owner, if it's being an esports performance coach, there's so many different things you can do. So for any parents that may actually see this, like think really carefully about what your son or daughter wants to do, because esports is now a viable option, and there are pathways there, and there's now btechs and courses that are being created to give people the opportunity to do what they love and follow their passion and follow their dreams, if that is in esports. And I think that's something that we should really promote as well, is like this is a viable career now. It's not just a joke anymore with some people sitting in their bedroom
Yeah.
playing video games. And that's what I really want to emphasize. It is now a professional industry with professional opportunities. And then yeah, I think the third thing as well is actually around about health. Like at a young age, playing video games can actually be really beneficial for cognitive development in terms of developing your cognitive executive functioning capacity. You've got different things around reaction times and working memory. There's so many positive things about playing video games. And I think we should really emphasize that as well. It's all not all doom and gloom. I know we see these negative things about mental
yeah.
health, but on the flip side, there is that social connectivity, there is that sense of camaraderie, and there's so many positive things that we need to, shine a light on. I think that is our goal in the industry as well, is to talk about these positives and help really, once again, educate people about what gaming and esports actually is.
I think as well, just to touch on that, like the stimulation and engagement, even from playing a game, and like, I don't know, I was reading the other day, I think one of the esports bloggers, him and his partner were playing together, and he was saying so much more engaging and stimulating than just sat with a bag of popcorn watching a film where you don't speak
Yeah.
to each other.
Yeah.
You're engaged and you're having a laugh, and it's bringing out a different side to you both. I don't know. I wouldn't be very competitive, but if you get me trying to play Xbox with Ryan, like suddenly
Well, I was gonna,
Hold on,
I
all
was
that
gonna,
matters is I
hold
win.
on a minute, Stuart. Have we got a new Warzone recruit?
yeah,
Wow.
I was going to ask that question because it doesn't matter whether it's one of my kids or my partner. Like they're not winning the game against me, so I was
Yeah.
like, I don't care. Like it doesn't matter whether it's a running race out the front or whatever. They're like no one like that's not happening. So I was going to ask that question on you two as to has it ever been a competition with regards to video games, or have you played each other or anything?
We haven't, have we, Ryan?
What have we tried? No, remember,
Bingo.
no, oh, here, that's a whole different thing in itself. I'll give you a quick story on that one. We were on the cruise ship, and we were sitting down in the bar, and there was a thing of bingo going around, and Molly said to me, I said to Molly, sorry, I was like, Molly, should we do it? She wasn't too fast, but we ended up doing it, okay. And as we're getting ready and the numbers about to be called out, Molly's like, give me that dabber now, give me that dabber, and see once they start calling the numbers, she was like, two,
I
3,
have
she
very
was
quick
going
reaction
absolutely nuts.
time.
Unbelievable.
Right.
But no, in video games, what have we played? We used to play Call of Duty and Call of Duty 5. Nazi zombies used to come in.
Any Mario
And
Yeah.
Kart?
really,
No Mario Kart?
No Mario. No, no
no,
Mario Kart.
we
See, I would be more into like the racing games. If you get me a Formula One game, like then I'm down and I'll be competitive and I'll be like turning the controller, pretending I'm driving, like doing the whole
I need, I
thing.
need,
But
I need to
no.
get you one of the driving rigs, get you a proper. proper setup.
Yeah, I'd love that. Like the Formula One drivers actually
Yeah,
have those, don't they? Yeah, with the
yeah,
brakes and all.
yeah.
No, that's great. So I think that's a really nice place to finish up, actually,
We
the
have
sort
a
of
couple of
benefits of esports.
questions, by the way.
Oh,
Okay,
brilliant.
brilliant.
Yeah, go
So we
ahead.
do. So first one. So I think maybe it's maybe something me and we'll see who can answer this actually. So do you think talent can be made out of any player, or do you think player talented first, then taught to manage other parts of their life in your experience with high skill, high effort players?
Yeah.
Um, so
Do you mind if I lead in that one
go
quickly?
ahead. Yep, go for it.
It's kind of like the age old question about nature versus nurture. And I am a big believer that we are all born with certain unique gifts
Hmm.
and we all have certain talents, but it is your ability as an individual to find out what you're talented at through trial and error and through doing different things. Now, in saying that, you could be the most talented individual, let's say the most talented esports player, but if you're not willing to put in the work and to be disciplined and refine your skill and your craft, you will not be successful. It doesn't matter if you are the most talented. And I think it's the old saying, like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work.
Hmm.
So I think just touching on that, what I would say is that if you have a talented player there and you're a coach, think about ways that you can create the best possible environment that allows for optimal challenge but optimal support, and really work with that individual to set goals, to understand their reasons for playing and what they want to achieve in their esports career. And then you as a mentor really focus on developing that coach athlete relationship and really try to better understand what are the best ways to effectively communicate with my athlete, how can I support them to allow them to play to the best of their ability. And I
Yeah.
think that's the most important thing. And something that I've really noticed in esports is unfortunately a lot of coaches and players don't have them open communication channels. And it's so fundamental in any relationship to have trust and to have understanding. So I'd really focus on communication and really focus on creating that supportive environment.
I think from my point of view, and coming from the traditional sort of background and coaching in schools, certainly from the experts, if you want to call them the teachers, teachers will see it as, of course, their job is to educate and stuff like that. But when it comes to sport, they would see it as not every kid is coachable. Like you can, and it's really, I think, and this is maybe just opinion, it's finding your level. You might just all,
Hmm.
you might only be able to get to a certain level, but that's okay. And very much like I've had this theory before, where it's, say for example, me as a rugby player and I'm kicking for posts, and you're trying to aim for 10 out of 10, and it's whether you realize yourself, am I going to be a professional rugby player who kicks 10 out of 10 every single game, or am I a decent rugby player who kicks 7 out of 10 and be happy with that? So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Managing expectation.
Yeah, and I think that's a big one. And I think that's a big one for players in terms of what they expect in terms of from an organization and everyone around them. Is a player going in and expecting too much money when they really aren't worth it? And I think if players can maybe reevaluate themselves to say, right, well, I need to think about where I am. Am I going to be a professional rugby player or uh, gamer? Do I dedicate the right time? Because you've got to consider so much when it comes, like being a professional gamer nowadays isn't about being good at your game. You've got to provide entertainment.
Hmm.
That we know it's an entertainment industry we're in. So, uh, in terms of that question, it's a hard one because I'm sure there is people that peak at different times. I mean, I've had in terms of coaching where I've tried to coach, and you really run out of options in terms of what more you can do for them. So it's, as you say, it's about you manage your expectations on where you think they're at. Are you realistic with them to say, look, I don't think you're going to be a pro. Okay, prove me wrong. But it's whether you decide where your level's good at, and be happy with that and be comfortable with that. My opinion, there's nothing wrong with being, it's like, say for example me, maybe one day I would have thought I would have been a professional rugby player, but I end up playing at the top level within club rugby. Be happy
Stuart,
with that.
are you sure you've accepted this? Or like,
but be but be like, my my happiness would be if I got to play at the highest club level.
Yeah,
That's my expectation. I'm happy with that.
yeah,
Whereas
if
someone
you say
else
so.
someone else who's been a pro rugby player might say they wouldn't have been happy with that because they've been at a pro level. So
yeah,
it's
Yeah,
about accepting where you stand in the sort of pecking order with stuff. I think, and I
yeah,
think when you come to accept that, that's when you probably get the best out of yourself and focus
yeah,
more on what level you're at.
yeah.
definitely.
So. Um,
Is there any other questions there as
yeah,
well?
Molly, this one could be for you.
Hmm.
Well, I suppose probably Ryan as well. Probably be aimed at you. In terms of gamers playing hours on end on a daily basis, how can they balance life and gaming life as a whole, but still strive to be the best in their craft?
Molly, it's all you.
Yep.
Yeah, I've had lots of conversations like this with people, and I think there's a very common misconception around if you want to be the best, you need to put in ridiculous hours. And I
Yeah.
think there's like that 1,000 hour rule, 10, is it 10, 1,000, 10,000 hours?
10,000.
10,000, yeah. I think the thing is like there's a phrase you need to sharpen the axe instead of just carrying on chopping the wood with a blunt axe. And I would say that to people a lot. You need to step away. You need to create boundaries for yourself. I'm big on boundaries. I think they're the best thing for everyone. Everyone should have boundaries that they're non-negotiable. And I think setting up a routine and you're going to be so much more productive if you have less time doing something because if you have a task and you've got all day to do it, how many of us procrastinate to the end of the day and then, oh, whoops, it's 5 o'clock, I'm going to make some dinner and chill out for the evening? You haven't achieved anything. But if you have a strict schedule, some boundaries, and you know that you can play PlayStation or Xbox or PC, whatever it is you're going to be doing, you can play for a couple of hours at a time and then you need to step away and do some other things. I think that's a really good thing to try and implement. And it's not easy is another big thing I would say to people. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be a miracle where one day you just wake up and you can control your addiction to wanting to play all day. It takes a lot of work and it's difficult. It's hard work and you might not always feel like being strict with yourself or being motivated to do that. But if you do see small changes, reward yourself. If you've done really well and you've stuck to your allocated time of gaming and you've got everything else done, go back on later that day and play another hour if you can. Reward yourself with things that you know are going to make yourself feel better and feel you're going to feel happy with what you've done. And there's nothing worse than self-loathing and just
Yeah.
being constantly frustrated in your efforts not being good enough. It's just it's a negative spiral, a negative cycle. So yeah, I definitely think start small, make some small changes and some small goals, and keep a diary of how you're doing. How long did you play for over the weekend? What are you going to do this week? And just try and hold yourself accountable. And if you have a significant other or someone you can talk to, help them hold you accountable. Get them to say to you, okay, look, you asked me to tell you when it was this time, it's this time. Do you think, have some boundaries and just try and work towards them? But what I would emphasize is it's not going to happen overnight
Yeah.
if you are trying to make changes.
And I think just on that one to give you my real experience in that, I mean, recently, sure, I've told you this anyway. So, I mean, I've cut out playing Xbox or video games from Monday to Friday.
Is this because
Now,
you've realised you're not going to be a pro? You've realised your level?
no,
No, he
stop it.
still thinks he's going
No, no,
pro.
no, no. Wait until I get my scuff game controller again and start doing PBs. I'm still waiting for the huntsman to pick me up, but that's another story. Um, but no, what I found is like, I mean, I used to play Xbox pretty much every evening, and see when I was younger, honestly, like I would have played 5 hours a day, easy, if not more, and done crazy, crazy. Like when I was younger, playing COD 4 and 5 back in them
Yeah.
days when COD was unreal.
Yeah, yeah,
I literally would have been glued to it, and I would have went and played my rugby, done my studies, and just played video games, and that was
yeah,
pretty much my life and all I really cared about, to be totally honest. But as you said, sure, like could I do that now? Certainly not. I would be broken, bust if I
yeah,
did that and was fatigued. But what I've realized is when I cut out Monday to Friday gaming, I still get the addiction feeling. Like I see it there, and I'm like, oh, I want to play, I
yeah,
want to play. But what I have realized is now when I get to Saturday and Sunday, and when I've hit all my objectives for my business in the week, I feel so much better about myself
yeah,
and feel like I've achieved something because I know that's my little reward at the weekend, playing a couple of hours with the boys, and playing some Warzone and playing some GBs, and that is what I look forward to then because I know if I work hard throughout the week, hit all my targets, that's my reward, and that's what I would say is Molly, thankfully, keeps me accountable to that. But now, at the start, it was hard, and I was a bit more fight back, and Molly'd be like, this is what you need to do. Whereas now, that kind of motivation's be more intrinsic for me, and I can control it myself. And I feel like I have, it helps me just be more productive, and I really appreciate playing video games a lot more as well, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's what I would say. As just reiterate what Molly said there, just start small, and you'll really see the difference, and you can thank yourself, your future self, later.
Okay, so last question. Toxicity is a pretty big buzzword in esports. What do you think about companies outwardly taking a very aggressive stance against it? And do you see any correlation between toxic players and skilled players? Um,
Yeah. Can I mention something really quickly? So
go.
I did a video yesterday for the Newell. We talked about high performance cultures and a bit. We not really, we touched on a bit about toxicity, right? But my view on toxicity or on how companies can go about it is it's kind of like the no dickheads policy on New Zealand rugby, and how do you create a high performance culture and find values and a culture that everyone is aligned with.
Yeah.
And I think it really does need to start with the kind of executive people at the top and the leadership system. And I think to be a good leader, you need to set the example. And I think the people who are on top of the publishers and the teams, they need to really lead by example, lead from the front and say this is what we're all about, and then demonstrate it through their actions. And then I also think you need to get the input from the community. You need to come together and really say this is what we're all about as a community here, and we're not going to accept this type of behavior. Now, what I will say is this is video games and esports, right? If we're playing against each other, Stuart, and I'm against you, like I will teabag your body, I will shoot you, I will
Yeah,
do
yeah,
anything to
yeah,
get you wound up, right? That's a bit of sportsmanship and
yeah,
a wee bit of like gamesmanship, or so to speak. And that's like a strategy to get you wound up and put you off your game, right? But that's one thing, okay? And then there's being toxic.
yeah.
Toxic people are just trolls. They are usually very insecure in themselves, and I'll let Molly touch upon this in a bit more detail, but really, really think about how your words and your actions online can influence someone. Like what we talk about is exercising unconditional positive regard, which is if you're being a total dick to me, Stuart, online and calling me stuff and saying I threw the game or whatever it is, right?
You're
For
terrible at
me,
Warzone.
yeah, which is just not true. But I mean, for me, what I'm trying to understand is if someone's attacking me like that, is I don't know what your circumstances are. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what's
yeah.
happened to you. I don't know
Absolutely.
what's happened to you in your day or
Yeah,
why you've got all this frustration
yeah,
built up anger. And all I can do is try to accept what you're saying and try not to let it impact me, to say, I accept what you're saying, and that's cool. And then just leave it there. But for me, toxic people do ruin esports in many ways. It's meant to be a fun community. It's meant to be fun, like fun for everyone. Yes, I understand competition. Yes, I understand there's that fine line between competition and toxicity. But I think, unfortunately, especially in League of Legends, too many people are over in this toxic bit here. So I think everyone needs to wise up, need to seriously take a real look in the mirror and say, why am I behaving the way I am? How are my actions actually impacting other people? Because suicide within esports and the game community is huge,
yeah,
and people really don't understand the magnitude and weight of their comments and how that can really influence someone. You don't know what day that person's had or what circumstances that person's under. And I think just be really, really careful of how you engage with people online, because you never know the impact your words could have.
yeah. Just quickly for me, and then I'll let Molly finish one. I, I think you nailed it in the head there. It's the fine line and the balance of things. I know from my point of view, I remember playing cricket when I was younger, and I think I might have only been a youngster. I can't remember what age, and I was playing it for the first, and I remember a guy had missed every ball, and I was in his ear of this boy couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, and it was just I was just whining, and that guy went on and hammered us all around the ground. It came back to bite me big time, and as you say,
Karma.
I've said things in rugby pitches and stuff in the heat of the moment, but as you say, it's whether it's seen as toxicity or whether you're just trying to get one over to maybe wind someone up or whatever. But I think the problem is as well is, one sport I always look at when it comes to toxicity is UFC. What where do you draw the line with it? Because they get personal. It's obviously a violent. It's a violent sport. Do then people see that as, well, they do it, I can do it within gaming, like why can't I call him this, why can't I call him that? But I think what you nailed on the head. Like, people come into gaming to get away from maybe real life things. They've gone to work all day, they've had a terrible day at work, and to come online and then listen to some idiot, um it's not pleasant. But I think I think the good thing is you've got the choice to step away from it. If
Hmm.
someone really is, if it is one of those days, like, I know even this from a point of view when we play Warzone, if it's just not your day, just go off. Don't make it any worse. And that's what I would say in general. Like, if someone is giving you a hard time, whether it's report it, find out who it is, whatever, you can go through the means of doing that, and maybe for that day, just so I want to say bite the bullet, but just walk away from it. See it as tomorrow's a new day. Like this day just hasn't gone my way. Let's not worry about it. Sleep on it and wake up the next day, and it's a brand new day.
Hmm.
So so yeah, Molly, what about
Molly.
from your point of view in the toxicity side of things?
I guess I would just probably offer a couple of sort of methods or technique, for anyone that's feeling like they need to be aggressive or toxic or start firing off horrible things to whoever's doing their head in that day. I just think there's a few things you can do. I mean, it's a natural reaction to get fired up and heated, and I hear you guys all the time screaming at each other, and to me it's like so shocking. But then and the next minute you're laughing, and it's just like, what on earth? It's such a head melt. But I just think, if you do need to get stuff off your chest, you can get it off your chest, but just not directly to that person. Write it down somewhere else. Say it into a voice note on your phone. A really good thing to do. Just get it off your chest. Don't send it to anyone. Just get it out there. And actually, just so simple. Take a deep breath. Take a deep
Yeah.
breath. Step away from the game. Just catch yourself on a bit, like, really, is this the depths of my lowness? Am I actually projecting this frustration, anger onto somebody else? And words are powerful.
Yeah,
They are probably the most powerful thing that we can use as humans, as
yeah,
people, speaking to each other. And what we say has weight, has meaning. And we've all been on the end of when someone's perhaps said something they don't mean, and
yeah,
how much it really sits with you and is
yeah, yeah,
horrible. And I just think something I always like to do if I'm struggling or I'm trying to figure something out in my head is think from the other perspective, the other person. Who's on the end of this? How are they feeling?
yeah,
How would I feel if that was me? All those sorts of, things that we are taught as we're growing up, coming into the adult world, that we suddenly seem to forget. In the heat of the moment,
yeah,
we can all be sort of, a bit horrible and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would just my biggest thing would be take a deep breath. If you do really feel like you need to get it out and off your chest, lots of people are advocates of that. It's better out than in, all that carry on. Wouldn't be my cup of tea or my style, but I think if you are adamant you need to scream and shout at someone or say the things you need to say, I would record it in a voice note on your phone, or type it out in your Discord chat, whatever you need to do, but
yeah,
just don't send it, and you get the same release. Because a lot of the time people don't engage with you. You're sending it all, you're saying it, and you're not even getting a response because people do just disengage with it
yeah,
because that's the nature of it.
yeah.
So I think try and get it off your chest anyway, and then yeah, like you say, Stuart, you know, disengage, walk away from it. It's not your day. Try again tomorrow.
Yeah, like my like I wouldn't direct anything towards anyone. If
Yeah,
like mine's very much frustrating maybe with me or the game, and like I've had my mum come up and say to me, Stuart, we have neighbours. Like you need to be
yeah,
careful. Like what you're saying. Like I'm like, ugh. But it's not aimed towards anyone from my point of view. It's very much frustrating. In terms of maybe like how I'm playing or whatever, but I don't
hmm
aim it towards anyone. But yeah, like sometimes you just gotta be like, right, it is not my day. I've had
yeah.
that recently, with friends. I'm like, lads, I need to get off. Like this just isn't happening. Like the game there's a vendetta against me here. This is not happening. So
I think a good analogy is think about tennis players. You put down the racket and you walk off the court.
yeah,
So just put it
Like
down and walk away. Don't accept it. Just put it
can you
down.
can you throw it at the other person before you go, or do you have
No,
to?
no. I don't advocate for aggression.
Oh dear.
um,
Well,
right, so I think should we wrap it up? Is there any
Yeah.
other questions in the chat, Stuart?
no, just a thanks. Someone said thanks, guys, for bringing up such the topic. Awesome and interesting to hear the opinions. So, yeah.
No, you're great.
I've enjoyed it. I've thoroughly enjoyed I suppose we want to call it first episode or whatever you want to call it. It's just something we wanted to do, and we really should do more. So I've enjoyed
Yeah.
it, and I hope you have as well. So I think just thanks to everyone for joining, and thanks for your questions, and we'll get more, maybe even questions lined up in preparation next time or something, and we'll
Yeah.
discuss more about this. So
Yeah, I think just on that note as well, like we really do appreciate all the support that everyone has given us
yeah,
on Twitter and on all of the social media platforms as well. And I think genuinely, like we do need the support and need people sharing and commenting to really get more awareness around what we're trying to do around mental health and promote physical health in esports. But as Stuart said there, if you have any questions you'd like us to answer or any other topics you want us to cover, just let us know and comment in this post here. And then what we'll do is we'll schedule another session and go through it again. But thanks very much for your time, Molly. Thanks very much for your time, Stuart. It has been great to do this, and yeah, certainly the first of many more to come.
yep. Okay, everyone. Thanks for
Great.
joining,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Cheers.
Bye.